What the hell is this? Who? That's not my Leon Kennedy or Chris Redfield. Those guys hatched out of eggs for sure. Hey, hi, hello, everybody. Welcome back. We've got some more Resident Evil 6 content here for you today. This time, it's a lore reaction. Now, if you just finished watching any bit of the gameplay that I played, you'll know I'm always confused, always wondering what's going on. The main thing I need to know is why did Ada come out of an egg? Anyways, there's a whole lot to the story. It moves pretty fast paced. There's action left, right, all over. And I need some magical British man to explain to me the world of Resident Evil 6. So without further ado, I think we found just the man. Let's press play and see what is going on in the world out there. Everybody shut up, we're watching TV.
Order, the video series where I look at and unpack stories from games. In this one, we'll be looking at Capcom's controversial follow-up to Resident Evil 5, Resident Evil 6. Now, this was almost considered the final nail in the coffin for this declining franchise, as this game was very different from the previous games in the series.
Yeah, way different.
This one had a very long campaign, stretched out over 4 different campaigns, with players experiencing the point of view of Leon and Helena, Chris and Piers, Jake and Sherry, and Ada Wong. This one was extremely action-heavy with little to no horror elements, and playing it, you can kind of see why many didn't like this game.
Yeah,
thankfully, the franchise was saved with the creation of Resident Evil 7, but I actually really enjoyed this game. God. I'll do my best to cover the plot chronologically and then expand on certain elements of the story. It's a huge story, and those of you unfamiliar with the wider plot will be surprised at how much lore there is here.
All right, let's check it out.
December 2012, a mercenary named Jake Muller is in war-torn Eastern European state Edonia. He takes a shot of something which seems to have no effect on him, but the Edonian rebels turn into violent hostile creatures called Joavo. After dealing with them, he is approached by a US government agency called the Division of...
I guess maybe we should have played the other playthroughs of different characters before we watch the lore video, but I don't really feel like doing that. If it was more like Resident Evil 4 or the remakes of 3 and 2, probably would have been willing to do that. RE6 was just kind of ram your head against the wall and see what happens with the zombies.
Security operations, or DSO for short, or more specifically one of their agents called Sherry Birkin.
Sherry!
Yep, the same Sherry Birkin from the Raccoon City incident over a decade earlier.
Over a decade.
Jake that his blood contains rare antibodies that could be used as an antidote for a virus called the C virus. Of course, with Jake being a mercenary, he requests $50 million in exchange for his blood, to which the DSO agrees.
I would say the same.
After escaping, they are hunted by a massive
If my blood can cure the world, I want to get at least a little bit of money for it.
They run into a BSAA squad led by Chris
Maybe not
Redfield,
50 million,
whose team had been dispatched to Edonia to investigate the presence of Joavo in the region. After taking out some anti-aircraft guns and fighting a massive BOW,
that thing hell is
the BSAA
ugly.
and Jake and Sherry part ways. Jake and Sherry take off in a helicopter which will take them to the DSO. During Jake and Sherry's journey, the BSAA team led by Chris arrive at...
This is what I hate about stuff like this sometimes, is it's DSO, BSA, I don't know what any of this stuff means. Bacon... something assault. I don't know.
Hall. They encounter what appear to be...
They probably explained it, but I can never remember.
...cocooned BOWs, and they see a woman in a blue dress. It's Ada Wong. She
Ada
informs
Wong.
them that the Joavo
She's dressed like Yuji
named the
Itadori.
C virus and have been supplied to the rebels fighting in the Civil War by a company named Neo Umbrella. Chris offers to escort Ada through the building, but she traps them by separating Chris and Piers from the other 4 squad members. She unleashes a needle bomb into the air loaded with the C virus, and Chris and Piers can only watch on as their fellow men mutate into chrysalids and then into creatures called napads.
Ooh, that's rough.
One of their squad mates, Finn, attacks Chris, beating Chris to the point where he starts to lose consciousness.
Oh.
Nonetheless, Piers manages to drag Chris to safety. Meanwhile, Jake and Sherry are on their way to meet with the DSO, but they're attacked by Ustanak and a hostile group called the Family. They defeat Ustanak, but the helicopter crash lands. Fortunately, Jake and Sherry manage to use a parachute to land safely. However, due to the debris from the helicopters flying by them, Sherry is injured. Jake pulls an object from her body, and it's revealed that Sherry has incredible regenerative abilities.
What the hell?
Don't worry, we'll get into that shortly.
Yeah, blew
Jake
my mind.
and Sherry lost 3 drives containing Jake's biometric data. Without that, they are hosed. So after retrieving the 3 drives, they take shelter from a snowstorm inside a shack. Their shelter doesn't last for long though, as they are attacked by Joavo. Jake and Sherry use 2 nearby snowmobiles to make a swift exit.
See, this is crazy, because we thought just the Leon Kennedy playthrough by itself was way far-fetched and over the top compared to the other Resident Evils. Like Resident Evil 4 goes a little bit crazy. Even just the OG one goes a little bit crazy of like doing stuff over the top. And then this one, you're fighting on a train underwater. You're fighting in the sky on a plane. You're everywhere. Now you're on a freaking mountain in a snowmobile. Like we didn't even get to play the other stuff. I just don't think this kind of playthrough is for me. This is like Call of Duty with zombies. I would much prefer the Resident Evil feel with zombies.
And narrowly
It's a little bit too
escape a
fast,
deadly
a little bit
avalanche.
too much movement.
They end up inside a nearby mine, and yep, they're being hunted by Ustanak again.
Of course.
Jake and Sherry escape the mine, but just as they exit, they're captured by the family and Ada Wong.
Ada
What
Wong.
on earth is Ada
Okay,
up to?
Ada Wong can do
But
some
before
wrong,
we find
apparently.
out, we need to go to America. 6 months have passed since Jake and Sherry's capture. Leon Kennedy, who, after serving under President Graham's presidency as a
Sexy
US STRATCOM
motherfucker.
agent, now serves under President Adam Benford as an agent in the DSO.
You mean the
On the
president
29th
he
of June
murdered.
2013, President Benford had a scheduled speech on the fight against terrorism at the Ivy University in a city called Tall Oaks. That didn't exactly go to plan as an outbreak occurred. President Benford was infected with the C virus and Leon had to take him out. Also present during this incident was United States Secret Service agent Helena Harper. Helena appears to say that this is all her fault and that she did this. Leon tries to get more information out of her, but Helena says that if they can get to the Tall Oaks Cathedral, she'll explain everything. They both make their way through the campus and the outbreak is out of control. Thousands are infected. Leon and Helena come across a group of survivors holding out at a bar while they wait for a fellow survivor to arrive with a bus to take them out of the city and to safety. After a tense fight with the infected, they manage to
Tense?
board
I
the
don't know
bus
about that.
and
It was
drive
pretty
out of
boring.
the city.
With all the
Contacting
zombies
his
running in, you thought it'd be a
handler,
little more
Ingrid Hunnigan,
exciting,
yep,
I
the
guess.
same Hunnigan from Leon's
Hunnigan!
Adventures in Spain. She mentions that Neo Umbrella claim responsibility for the attacks on Tall Oaks, to which Leon replies, it's Raccoon City all over again. Hunnigan says she needs to know what's in the cathedral, as the National Security Advisor to President Benford, Derek Simmons, is there with Hunnigan and he wants updates. The bus ride is going well, that is until an infected walks out in the middle of the road, causing the bus to swerve and then balance precariously off a cliff edge. The survivors are attacked and the bus is rammed off the cliff by a speeding and out-of-control truck. Miraculously, Leon and Helena are the sole survivors of this incident, and in a massive stroke of luck,
Miraculously.
they are at the intended destination.
They're just invincible. They're
the
not allowed to
cemetery
die.
of
They're
Tall
too
Oaks
hot to die.
Cathedral.
That's how Resident
They
Evil
get through
works.
it, and after arriving in front of the cathedral,
Ow!
they fight creatures and are eventually let in by more survivors.
That was cool.
Leon and Helena discover a secret entrance built into the altar, leading down into a sort of crypt. There aren't just dust and rats down there. There's something called a Lepotica, a
Lapatica.
creature with paws on its body, which emit a blue gas containing
I thought he said paws, and I was imagining like kitten paws all over it. And I was like, what does he mean by paws? But he meant pores. Pores. I'm not hating on the accent. I was just super confused for a second. And the image of this thing right here on the screen with a bunch of paws that were like kittens was weird to me.
the C virus. Inhale it, and you turn, as this poor dude finds out.
Why did that guy stand right next to it, is my question. Like, the second I see it walking up the stairs, turning around and running the other way.
Anyway, after
This
the
guy's
creature
like,
is
"Come on
discussed,
in,
the
the
creature
water's
Leon and Helena uncover
fine."
an underground lab beneath the cathedral.
Oh my
This
goodness.
lab contains chrysalids.
Explain to me,
more
please.
infected. Helena
Please.
states that she was there
I
3
want
days
to
ago,
know.
and these subjects weren't there then. Leon discovers a tape labeled "Happy Birthday,
Uh-huh.
Ada Wong."
Now explain
And
it.
given his knowledge of her, he becomes curious and plays the tape.
Explain
He
it.
shows something called Project Ada and a cocoon hatching. Out of this cocoon comes Ada Wong. Leon is understandably confused.
Same, me
More
too.
battles against the infected, Leon and Helena push on through the lab, escaping through a chute and further underground into a series of tunnels. In a large open area, Helena finds what she was looking for.
Her sister.
Deborah.
Deborah.
Deborah isn't in great shape, so Helena carries her. After descending, Deborah begins to cry out and she turns into a chrysalid. She then hatches into, well, a naked woman. A
Yeah.
bomb flies out of
A
nowhere and
really,
strikes Deborah.
a
It's
really
Ada who
naked
tells them
person.
she can't tell them what's going on as it's complicated. Deborah then mutates further and attacks the group.
Uh-oh.
Deborah, about to kill Helena, is saved by Leon and Ada.
She's so
and Deborah
naked.
ends up falling to her death. Helena reveals that 3 days earlier, she and Deborah were captured by none other than Derek Simmons, the National Security Advisor. Helena reveals that she helped Simmons breach President Benford's security at the university, And that explains why Helena said the outbreak and the death of the president were all her fault. Simmons had used her sister as leverage. Ada receives a call, and in classic...
Can you be legally, like, responsible for that? Or are you supposed to just say no? Because I feel like that doesn't put you in the right state of mind, right? When you've got, like, a sibling, a really close sibling of yours, who's being captured and possibly tortured or murdered right in front of you if you don't do what you're told to do. That's not a question for Resident Evil. That's a question for the U.S. freaking law system and all that fun stuff. But anyways, we'll figure that out in the day.
Makes a swift exit.
Bye, Ada.
Leon calls Hunnigan to warn her about Simmons, but he takes over the call on her end.
Ooh.
He frames Leon and Helena for the death of the president and the attack on the university.
It was Leon's
and
fault.
Uses his position of power
All
to deny
Leon's
his
fault.
involvement. Leon and Helena push on through some catacombs and meet another BOW.
Megalodon.
This time a sort of shark-like BOW. Eventually defeating it, Leon and Helena escape the catacombs and see the city
weapon.
of Tall Oaks being sterilized,
BOW.
just like Raccoon City was back in '98.
R.I.P.
They receive a call from Hunnigan, who informs them that Simmons has left and is heading for Lanxiang in China. Alright, so what happened to Jake and Sherry then? Well, after they were taken by the family 6 months earlier,
This is a pretty
they were
long
taken to a
story.
secret facility in China where Jake was experimented on. Being escorted by Juravo mutants, Jake attacks them and escapes his confinement, eventually meeting up with Sherry. Sherry contacts the DSO and finds out that Simmons traveled to China, to Lanxiang.
No, the
Anyway,
YouTube
after
stream's
intense
already
fighting and
up. You
taking
can
out
literally
lots
go
of
to the
Juravo,
YouTube stream to see
Jake and
it.
Sherry use a bike to escape the compound and they head
Duh.
towards Lanxiang. But back to Eastern Europe again. Chris Redfield is drunk in a bar. You see, when Chris was attacked back at the city hall,
Drunk in a
Madonia,
bar?
he was
My
beaten
kind of
so
guy.
badly that he suffered amnesia. He basically left the BSAA. But an old friend
What
arrives.
the?
It's Pierce Nivens. Chris doesn't remember him. After some minor confrontation with a local, it seems that Chris hasn't forgotten his training. Pierce sits him down and tells
Just
him
all
about
reaction.
bioterrorism and their squad that died back in Madonia, which seems to trigger some flashbacks. Pierce tells him that they've been looking for him for 6 months and that everyone is waiting for him to come back.
Wow.
Turns out most of the people in the bar are with Pierce in the BSAA, and they take Chris back to the BSAA and he joins them in their mission in Way of
What the
Lanxiang,
hell?
where another Neo-Umbrella bioterror attack has taken place. Chris and Piers also come face to face with the Juravo again, and they have to fight through the streets in order to reach a building known to them as the Ace of Spades, where some members of the United Nations are being held hostage. They free the United Nations members, but due to a BSAA airstrike, the team has to scramble to get out of the building before it's completely destroyed. Chris sees a load of chrysalids, and this triggers more memories to come back. He remembers that Ada Wong killed his men, and he vows to get revenge. At this point, Jake and Sherry, still heading towards Wayup, are being pursued by an attack helicopter. They jump a wall and crash.
This is literally just Fast and Furious with zombies. Like, that's why people don't like Resident Evil 6, because it's just Fast and the Furious with zombies. And if this was before Fast and the Furious, like all the craziness of all that stuff, maybe it would be like super likable and whatnot. But I'm pretty sure this is after all the craziness of all that stuff, where it was just drawn out and people didn't care for it so much.
Their bike.
Just Fast and the Furious,
BSAA
whatever
see
was
Jake and
zombies.
Sherry and help
But
them in
6
taking down
was
the attack
insane.
helicopter.
10 is insane.
Chris
They're all
stares
insane.
intently at Jake, almost as if he recognizes him, and Jake
Give
and
him a
Sherry leave
smooch.
to meet up with Simmons. Shortly after this, the BSAA Alpha team are attacked by a huge
Wait,
snake
did he ever explain? Okay, he's probably going to explain why Sherry has regenerative powers.
BOW,
We'll let it be.
which one by one
figured out.
takes out their entire team apart from Chris, Piers, and a soldier called Marco. Incidentally, Marco's father was caught up in the Tall Oaks incident and was hiding in the cathedral.
Oop, sorry about
they
that.
kill the monster, but after surviving this horrific BOW, Ada shoots Marco with a dart loaded with the C virus, and
Again.
Marco turns into a chrysalid and then into a mutation called a Nesdo, which is a swarm of insects controlled by a queen. After destroying the queen and taking Marco's
Dude,
C4,
Ada's so
they go
wait.
after Ada, who-
Why is Ada so cold-blooded to everything that Chris does, but she loves Leon? Like, what? That's wow.
The BSAA say
She
has been
is
spotted at the
torturing
harbour.
Chris.
Fighting their way through the harbour, Chris and Piers are ambushed by another attack chopper, and after getting rid of it, they arrive at some sort of research
Hmm.
centre. Now, whilst all this was happening, Leon and Helena were on a plane to China, and it all kicks off. A couple
Hell
of
yeah.
Lopotica are on board, and
Somehow.
they infected all the passengers. Leon and Helena kill the creature, and Leon tries to control the plane, but it crash lands in Wayup.
And
Jake
kills
and Sherry see
thousands
the plane
of
go down,
people.
as does Ada, and Jake and Sherry rush to investigate. They meet up with Leon, and Sherry learns.
I guess it doesn't end up
that Simmons
mattering
is responsible for the outbreak.
that they killed
Sherry
so many
doesn't wanna
people.
Believe it, but whilst they are talking, Ustanak turns up. After a
Ustanak.
fight, an explosion separates the two groups. Sherry tells Leon and Helena where she'll be meeting with Simmons. Hunnigan reaches out to Leon and tells him that the building Sherry was talking about isn't far away, but Leon and Helena have to pass through a market, and then they see Ada.
Ada!
They follow her.
I still can't get over the Yuji Itadori shit. I need to also look that up, because she looks like she's dressed exactly like him, and I keep bringing it up like it's a really big deal, but it's just such a good show.
Her into a facility, but of course, Ada is being hunted by Chris and Piers, who open fire on her, with both parties evading traps set by Ada.
Oh, that's how you
Chris
get
and
past that
Piers
part. That makes
confront
sense.
Ada. Chris is
I
about
ran
to
into
shoot
the
her,
lasers.
but he's stopped by Leon. Protecting his girl, Leon and Chris fight, but then realize who each other are. Whilst they're talking, Ada throws a flash grenade and escapes.
Of course she does.
Leon tells Chris
Why
they
wouldn't
want
she
the same
escape?
thing to stop the attack, and Chris says the BSAA will go after Ada, and Leon and Helena will go after Simmons. Leaving the warehouse, Leon and Helena come across Simmons and his men. Sherry and Jake turn up, and Sherry...
That's what stormtroopers look like without all the helmets and stuff like this. I have no idea what this is about. It is literally the game we just played, Resident Evil 6. So, it is literally just Resident Evil. What do you mean? But this is what stormtroopers look like when they have their armor off, by the way, because these guys cannot hit a bullet for their
asks
life.
Simmons if he's responsible, to which he admits his involvement. In his words, it was for the benefit of the United States and global security. He orders his men to dispose of them.
And
but
they
while his
suck
men
at
are
it.
distracted, Simmons is injected with the C virus by Joavo and starts to mutate, saying, "She got me." Sherry hands Leon the drive with the information regarding the
R.I.P.
C virus and how to stop it, and the two groups separate again. Leon and Helena continue to go after Simmons, and Jake and Sherry are captured by a group of Joavo and imprisoned at an underwater oil field. After Leon and Helena
What?
depart, Chris and Piers use a Humvee.
Oh,
to
they
capture
did.
with
Okay,
Ada,
that was a separate
ending up
part
on
that
a
we
ship
didn't
in
get
the
to play
docks.
because they went to go
Fighting
rescue.
through
Yeah,
the ship, they confront Ada on the ship's bridge, and Ada
Oops.
tells them that her plan was to spread the C virus around the entire world. Basically Raccoon City 2.0, but this time on a global scale. She tells them that the aircraft carrier is preparing for launch and is equipped with missiles loaded with the C virus, which will be launched
I
shortly.
don't feel like. Why is
One of
this
Simmons'
what
men
Ada?
turns up in a chopper and shoots Ada, and she falls to her death. She drops
So
her
you die.
suitcase, which contains a sample of the virus. Chris tried to warn the BSAA.
This doesn't seem like
the
Ada
terror
that we
attack
know,
was
because she
diversion,
didn't do this in
and the real
RE4. She
attack
turned
is to
against
spread the
Wesker. She
virus
turned against the
globally.
guy.
Leon and Helena then catch up with Simmons, and after he heavily mutates into a dog-like creature, they defeat him. They fall into the river, and after getting to dry land, they discover the BSAA escorting the civilians away up to somewhere else. Helena asks Leon if it's over, and he says it is, but they couldn't have been more wrong. After
Yeah.
fighting their way through the carrier, Chris and Piers take control of a fighter jet in an attempt
It's never
to stop
over
the
in a
missile
Resident Evil
launch.
game.
But after fighting a huge BOW,
What the
they
hell?
do so. Chris contacts Leon and tries to warn him, but it's too late. The missiles detonate over the city, unleashing the C virus on the population.
So this is why it didn't matter that Leon crash landed that plane and killed thousands of people just to save himself and Helena, of course, because this ended up happening. So he got lucky.
And all hell
Nobody
breaks
cared
loose.
about the plane getting crashed anymore. I will say these zombies were way crazier than any of the other ones. These ones like ran and jumped at you, spit acid at you. Like they were just way crazier overall. They ran so fast. Ooh. Ooh, ooh, ooh. Craziness.
Leon tells Chris that
There's
Sherry
no
and Jake
chill in
have
this
been
game.
taken to
All
the
gas, no
field
brakes.
and asks him to help them. Leon breaks some shocking news to Chris that Jake Muller is Albert Wesker's son and that he has antibodies for the C virus.
Ooh.
Chris breaks the news to Leon.
Where
that
is
Muller
Wesker
dead.
at?
Leon silently grieves, and he and Helena try to desperately
Is Wesker killed in Resident Evil 5? I can't even remember whether he gets killed on Resident Evil 5 or not. I know we fight against him. I know Chris goes up against him. It's a whole entire thing. He's like the big bad guy. Oh my god, I need to replay Resident Evil 5 or at least rewatch a lore video. All right,
escape the C virus.
onward
along with
we
the
go.
BSAA. Fighting through hordes of infected, they get to a Humvee and part ways with the BSAA soldier. They both get knocked out by an explosion from a gas tanker and wake to find chaos around them. They are confronted by an attack chopper, but to their surprise, it's piloted by Ada, who helps them out.
she's just
Leon and
invincible.
Helena escape down an
What if there's
alleyway, and after
multiple
running through more
Adas?
explosions,
There's like
they're
5
rescued by
Adas.
the BSAA,
They
who
all
come
got
to their
hatched.
aid in a chopper. One of the BSAA are infected, and Leon has to take control of the chopper crash landing it in the lobby of a tower building.
There he goes, crash landing
Next
again.
room, they come face to face with Simmons, who is still alive.
Simmons,
He's
he's a
mad at Ada
T
for some
freaking
reason,
Rex.
claiming she took Wesker's son away. He mutates again, this time into a dinosaur.
Which is...
Leon and Helena defeat him once again.
He
with the
said
help
that,
of
it sounded like
Ada
he was
in her chopper,
disappointed.
and she heads to the roof. Leon and Helena use an elevator to get to the roof, and yep, Simmons is back again.
Of course he is.
Destroys their elevator.
Because
and
why
they have
think
to
of a new
climb up the
boss?
elevator
Just keep
cable.
evolving the
Ada
same
was in the
boss.
middle of fighting Simmons, and Leon ends up helping her. Ada stabs him in the torso, and he falls into the fire below.
I like it.
Leon and Helena.
It's still so funny to me how stabbing him in the torso is just somehow the final blow after getting shot by a magnum, a bunch of assault rifle ammo, grenade launchers, actual C4 detonations, freaking everything that you could ever have, and then somehow the stab to the torso with some rebar is what does
Helena
it.
continue onto the roof.
whatever
and
the hell it
surprise,
was.
surprise, they're surprised by Simmons, who this time turns into a massive insect-like creature. Using an electricity
That's
rod,
called
they
a fly,
defeat him,
yes.
and he falls to his death being impaled on a spike. Ada left Leon and Helena a chopper along with a drive containing evidence that will prove their innocence and that will prove Simmons' guilt, and they use this chopper to escape.
Why don't we show the rocket
Hours
launcher?
later, Chris and Pierce arrive at the entrance to the underwater oil field. Chris mentions that this war can't follow him forever. It's been 3 years since he killed Wesker, and that after they're finished with their mission, he's leaving the BSAA. They see a camera feed with Jake and Sherry detailing where they're being held, and Chris and Piers release them using the controls, and they make their way to them. At this time, Jake and Sherry get free and escape and come face to face with...
I know I pause a lot, but it does seem like the other ones are worth playing through some other time. This seems to be completely different than what we were worried about. We might not play the Helena one, because I mean, she's with Leon the entire time. So I guess we just play through at least the others. I don't know if there is a Helena playthrough. I'm pretty sure there is. I don't know. We'll see what it is.
Piers. Chris and Jake have a tense confrontation after Chris tells Jake that he sees his father in him and explains that he is the one who killed Wesker.
Have a good
back
one,
in
Ryan. We'll see you around.
2009. Jake lets it go, but they end up finding the catalyst for Ada's master plan. A giant cocoon which will infect the entire world with the C virus if it hatches.
Nice.
Well, it hatches, and out of it comes a BOW known as Chaos. Chris and Pierce descend to defeat
That
Chaos.
thing looks pretty badass, I'm not going to lie.
Jake and Sherry start making their escape, but yep, Ustinak makes an
There
appearance.
he is.
They fight him,
This guy
and
is
Jake
persistent.
ends up in a fist fight with this absolute beefcake, and in the end, Ustinak falls into the lava. Jake and Sherry then use an unbelievably fast platform to escape to the surface through a tunnel, but Ustinak isn't dead yet.
Of course
He
not.
tries to attack them on their platform, and they shoot Ustinak through the heart, killing him for good this time, and they both manage to escape. Chris and Piers engage and fight Chaos. They run to escape the pursuing BOW, but Piers
Holy.
is grabbed and thrown, and his arm is badly
Oh.
damaged. It gets worse for him. The BOW throws an object,
Oh.
pinning his arm against the wall. Chris is grabbed this time, and Piers frees himself by ripping what's left of his arm off,
Oh!
and uses the earlier obtained C virus sample, injecting himself.
Savage.
This
That's
mutates
lit.
him, and he uses his
That
new
is
strength
so
and power
sick.
to save Chris. They fight and defeat
That is
Chaos.
so
Piers is
badass.
in bad shape and turning fast. They both attempt to escape, and the facility is falling apart due to the water pressure, and they eventually make it to the escape pods.
Oh, a good guy
Piers knows
C
he's
virus?
absolutely screwed, and he pushes Chris into the pod and launches it, leaving himself behind.
That's
Chaos
pretty
certainly
sick.
isn't letting this go though, and swims to attack Chris's escape pod. And he uses his power to kill Chaos for good, allowing Chris to actually escape.
got
whilst
lightning
the facility
powers.
blows up. The game then ends. So,
C virus lightning powers. Probably some of the sickest C virus stuff you could see. But that made me think, like, there's never a good guy that uses this stuff, right? What if he just stayed alive with Chris and used his good guy powers? Is he not capable of doing that? Because all the other ones are capable of controlling it. Wesker, Simmons, whatever else. So
like
I don't know.
said, a massive campaign.
Ada!
But there's one we haven't really discussed. I wanted to discuss it in this next section.
Ada?
So let's start diving into the layers in this story.
If I don't find out why she hatched out of an egg, I'm gonna be so upset. Thank you.
So in this
Thank
game,
you,
there's an
thank you.
Ada campaign. Those of you who are eagle-eyed would have realized that Ada was dressed in two different get-ups.
Mhm.
A signature red that she wears all the time, and also a blue dress at other times. This is because there were two Adas.
I knew it.
Kind of.
At least two.
Let's introduce ourselves to someone called Carla Radames. Carla was a genius-level researcher who was working for Derek Simmons. At some point, Simmons had dealings with Ada Wong back in 1998. She used to work for him, but the dealings didn't end there. Simmons became infatuated with Ada after she rejected him.
Of course he did.
Simmons set up a secret project, Project Ada. He worked on kidnapping thousands of women and attempted something absolutely mental. He wanted to create another Ada.
That's
Carla
insane.
began to work on and be the supervisor for Project Ada. That didn't go well at first. More than 12,000 experiments over 10 years ended in failure, and it wasn't good news for Carla. Simmons, somewhere along the line, realized that Carla's genetics were very similar to Ada's. Knowing full well that Carla was infatuated with him, Simmons convinced Carla to be the next test subject. She would in fact be the final one.
That's cold-blooded. You like a girl so much, and you know a girl likes you so much, that you use that girl to turn her into the one that you actually like. That's sick and twisted.
Worked.
That's like yelling your like another person's name like mid-fuck. That's
Carla
crazy.
became a chrysalid, and then she hatched as a perfect copy of Ada. Well, she would become a near-perfect copy. Simmons began his work in programming Carla to be exactly like the real Ada Wong. He used and managed to retain Carla's love for him, and this ensured that she would never leave him like Ada did. Simmons gave her lots of power, a base, and an army of soldiers. But something was brewing under the surface. Carla, due to having part of her being left inside her, began to have an internal conflict. She was furious at what Simmons had done to her, so she became determined to destroy everything that he had built. Carla then secretly built the organization Neo Umbrella and set it up in China. During this time, Carla would create and perfect the C virus, the virus we see in the game. She did this by obtaining a T. veronica virus sample, and using the mutation characteristic from the progenitor virus, she developed a new variant of T. veronica named T02.
That's already
now this
fine,
is where
right?
Sherry
Yeah.
Birkin comes in. Due to Sherry's father, Dr. William Birkin, exposing her to the G virus, Sherry had a G virus variant inside of her body, which explains her regenerative abilities. After the raccoon incident and the death of Sherry's father, Simmons became Sherry's legal guardian.
Peak Resident Evil right
She was
there.
taken and experimented on by Simmons and Carla. Carla used Sherry's G virus sample, combined it with T02, and the C virus was developed. A virus that Carla at least considered to be the perfect virus. Now, a quick side note, this happened in 2009. You remember what else happened in 2009?
No.
Chris Redfield killed Albert Wesker.
Oh, so
With
Wesker is dead.
gone,
Oh!
Sherry was no longer under threat, so she was offered a job as a government agent reporting to Simmons, the national security advisor.
So that answers
But
that.
there's even
Wesker
more
is
backstory for
dead.
Carla's testing phase for this virus. I'm not going to go into it here, but this is covered through books detailing an outbreak at a school in Asia. The BSAA and Chris get involved in the cleanup. If you want to read these books, I'll
Zombie
link them
school
below.
rules.
After the trial stage, it's all going pear-shaped for Simmons. Jake Muller became known to be the only person in the world with C-virus antibodies thanks to his father, Wesker.
That's
this leads us
crazy.
into the events of the game where Simmons sends
Wesker was
Agent Birkin to get Jake
also
to
peak
1.
Resident
Make
Evil.
sure a vaccine for the C-virus was never produced, and 2. To potentially use Jake's blood to enhance the C-virus even further. Simmons also sent Carla along to ensure that Jake really had C-virus samples, and she was the one who gave him and the Edonian rebels the shot which turned them into Dravo. Jake not being affected by the shot meant that he had antibodies. Anyway, back to Carla's Neo Umbrella and her master plan. She had an underwater facility built to develop a huge BOW. Chaos, the massive BOW Chris
thing
and Pierce
is
fought.
insane.
This BOW
That is definitely one of their coolest designs for any of their POWs that they had before. It looks like a spirit, but like mixed with like
was
flesh. It's
designed with the
weird.
idea that it would split itself in two, and it had organs like Lipotica, which would disperse the C-virus gas on a global scale. To avert suspicion, Carla would continue to be subservient to Simmons. Now, here's where Ustenak comes in. I told you
buddy.
this story was huge. At some point in 2011,
Oh.
just over a year before the game takes place, one of the researchers working for Carla was injected with the C-virus as a test subject. He underwent this willingly as he was born with a weak body and was frail. He was happy with the results. He had a new strength. A couple of days in, he lost his right arm in a lab accident, but his arm didn't regenerate properly. Here's a slightly messed up detail. Ustenak viewed Carla as a mother of sorts, a savior too, given that she had given him power and strength. He would be programmed to capture Jake Muller, as Carla planned to go against Simmons and capture him for herself.
He's like some
which
Outlast
explains why
level shit.
Ustenak was there in
He just
Adonia in
looks
2012.
messed up.
But Carla's plan had a hitch, and it was all of her own making. For some reason, Carla contacted the real Ada Wong, but masked the call to appear as if it was coming from Simmons instead. She told Ada there's some information aboard a ship which might be of interest to her. Ada arrives at the ship in June of 2013, and to Ada's surprise, she is able to access everything. Ada discovers information about herself and that her prints are on file, along with a video detailing what appears to be her being sent on a mission to capture Jake Muller. This confuses her as she obviously never received that briefing. But quite why Carla chose to involve Ada isn't known. Maybe she just hated Ada. Anyway, Carla goaded Ada and told her all about the forthcoming attack in Tall Oaks, and told her that she formed Neo Umbrella and that the face of this organization, to the world at least, was Ada Wong, and that Ada would end up taking the blame for the terror attacks. So Ada went off to Tall Oaks. Ada assisted Leon and Helena finds the lab.
She's always just like watching over Leon like a guardian angel. It's crazy.
Cathedral.
She's always there hanging out, vibing.
Happy Birthday Ada Wong.
Oh, she sees it too?
Video of Simmons watching Carla's chrysalid hatching and the birth of Carla's version of Ada Wong.
That's insane to watch herself hatch.
Carla who's been calling her and not Simmons. Ada calls Simmons and informs him of what Carla is really up to, and she then destroys the lab. Ada heads for China. Ada finds documents on the aircraft carrier with details about why Carla became Ada 2.0 through Simmons' obsession with her.
It's so creepy. That's
death of Carla,
ultimate
who they,
stalker
of course,
level.
Still think is Ada. They leave the scene and Ada approaches Carla. Turns out that Carla injected herself with the C virus after her fall and transformed into, well, something.
Ew.
After freezing her with liquid nitrogen and shattering her, Ada escapes the carrier, and reaches a helicopter and heads
That
for
was not a
Lanshan.
cool design. That was
That's
ugly.
when Ada reaches and helps Leon and Helena fight.
How do you go from Ada Wong beautiful to weird, creepy, ugly thingy so fast?
Remember that he
Well,
got
C-virus,
injected and he thought it was Carla. Well, he thinks that Ada is Carla. After Simmons is killed, she leaves Leon a drive with information on it that will clear his and Helena's names, and she finds Carla's lab. She witnesses another chrysalid hatching, but Ada puts a stop to it, destroys the lab, and all evidence of her doppelganger existing.
Nice.
So that concludes Ada's role in this game, and I guess in the franchise, for now. But there's a name that comes up a few times in the story.
Leon Kennedy. The family.
The Family is a secret fraternity, or a shadow organization, founded sometime between 1685 and 1815. This was a real-life period of time known as the Enlightenment period, an intellectual and philosophical movement which focused largely on global influence amongst other things. This is thought to be the time in which the Illuminati was started.
Dude, I love when like devs take lore from their own game and they shape it around like real life history. That's always so fun to me.
Had
or real life
very
events.
Deep pockets. The founders of this particular secret society.
Those are the slowest rockets
Simmons
ever.
Family. Yep, that's right, Derek Simmons family. Their base, or rather their headquarters, was based in Tall Oaks, accessed through, you guessed it, a secret entrance in the Tall Oaks.
That explains why it's in the cathedral.
The family had their own goal,
It's
which was
old as shit.
bioweapons development, but it goes deeper. Simmons, being a US government official, was actually the one who ordered the strike on Raccoon City in 1998. The family then, after the Raccoon City incident, redirected their goals fully towards bioweapons development with Umbrella out the way. Simmons, still in the US government, became National Security Advisor to President Adam Benford, and the two were actually good friends. That wasn't until Benford became an enemy of the family and Simmons. The reason?
So much reading.
Benford decided to
Way too many
releasing
words.
the details and the classified information regarding the Raccoon City incident. The family thought that the damage to the US and also the risk of exposing the combat data from the US Army operation in Raccoon City to potential enemies would be too much, and the family considered that an act of treason. Simmons, who had already created Ada 2.0, concocted a plan to take out Adam Benford in 2013 and cover it up as a bioterror attack, using Helena's sister as leverage to get her to carry out the plan. He gave Carla control of the family's paramilitary force in East
I know
Asia,
that motherfucker's
an
cold.
army which she would use to go against Simmons.
Why she dressed like
and
that?
She
Put
would
on a
ultimately
coat.
use to infect him with the C virus. After the death of Simmons, this confirms that a new leader was chosen, so the family lived on.
I didn't even see anything about the family at all whatsoever. Spoilers for RE7, RE8, and
After
RE.
each campaign, we get a cutscene to
screw
show
it.
what happened after the events of the game, tying off loose ends, so to speak. In terms of Leon and Helena, after their campaign, Helena is visiting her sister Deborah's grave, and Leon and Hunnigan turn up. Thinking that she's going to be taken into custody for her role in the terror attacks, she is let go due to the fact that she was forced by Simmons. As for Leon, we haven't seen him after the game yet, but we have seen him in Resident Evil Vendetta, which takes place 1 year after the events.
What the hell is
Resident Evil
Vendetta?
6. As for Chris, after the death of Piers, Chris is enjoying a meal in Eastern Europe. He went back on his desire to quit the BSAA in honor of
That steak looked medium rare, so that just means Chris is a man of culture. He knows how steak is supposed to be eaten. If you eat it more than that, if you eat medium or more, I judge you.
Pierce. A colleague comes over to Chris and tells
All right, medium can slide. Anything more than that.
him they have a new mission. You see, Chris was also in Resident Evil Vendetta, where he was supervising a mission.
What
for
the hell
Mexican
is this?
government.
Who? That's not my Leon Kennedy or Chris Redfield. Those guys hatched out of eggs for sure. What?
As we know, Chris stayed with the BSAA and was then in 2017 sent on a mission to Dulvey, Louisiana, where he went after Lucas Baker. As mentioned in my Resident Evil
What is
Village
this?
Story Explained video, Chris then became disillusioned with the BSAA after they, 1, chose to cover up the Dulvey incident, and 2, that the BSAA chose to work alongside Blue Umbrella, who were born out of the ashes of the defunct Umbrella
Resident Evil
Corporation
Vendetta?
as a means to make amends.
Dude, I'm so
And
dumb.
then in
There's so much I
2018,
don't
Chris took
know.
command of an elite BSAA unit who were loyal to him, and they went rogue and went after Miranda in Eastern Europe, playing out the events of
Who the hell's
Resident Evil
Miranda?
8. Jake, well, he softened a bit after his adventures in Edonia and China, initially having
Sherry!
asked for $50 million for his blood. He dropped the asking price to $50 and devoted his life to helping others.
Oh.
As seen in Ada's ending cutscene, where he appears to be aiding a village or a town by fighting
W.
a bunch of hunters.
That's
The
sick.
reason why we don't see anything about Ada after her campaign is that she's just so mysterious and that we never really know what her motives are.
Damn.
Ada works in the shadows, so who knows what her next mission will be, but she'll likely be stalking Leon. But that's it for this one. If you enjoyed this video, then please be sure
In
to leave a like
heels too? Girl is a queen. God damn.
and subscribe to the channel to support, and leave a comment with your thoughts below. But for now, take care, and I'll see you in the next one.
Okay, so at least we got the main thing that I wanted. Thanks for watching. Thanks for making that video, Mr. Hairy Man. The main thing that I wanted was the Ada Wong egg event. Okay, it did confuse me why there was 2 outfits. You didn't really need a sharp eye for that. I feel like it was so thrown in your face. But it was explained nonetheless, which is good for me because I'm dumb. Now, it looks like the characters kind of just disperse on their own ways all throughout. There's some Resident Evil stuff that goes in number 7 and number 8, which we'll be playing soon. We might have to take a retrack back through Resident Evil 5 as well. I wasn't going to play it because I heard there was controversy on it. Didn't know the controversy. I know a little bit more about it. I don't think it'd necessarily be bad for me to play it. I can't imagine that's a problem. But maybe we go back in time before Resident Evil 6, play that Resident Evil 5 game, and just enjoy it for what it is and not think too much into it. For now, Resident Evil 6, we'll maybe revisit some of those stories. I think there was enough gameplay to warrant me going back and playing through the Ada playthrough and the Chris playthrough and whatever else there is. But for now, we'll just push on. Resident Evil 7 coming up next. Then we follow it with Resident Evil 8, which I believe is a continuation from 7 in a way. I think. I'm pretty sure. I'm not quite sure. Either way, that's it for me. Thank you guys for watching. If you enjoyed the content, please consider tossing a like towards the video and maybe even subscribe. Leave a comment, say hello, all that fun stuff. Till next time, my friends.